It is my real pleasure to welcome back to Brown, Romano Prodi and Flavia Franzoni, who are with us for only a short time, but during their time here managed to pack in many talks, meetings with students, collaborations with faculty, and it's really wonderful to have them. Romano Prodi is a professor at large at Brown, former Prime Minister of Italy and past president of the European Commission, as you know. He is also a former professor of industrial organization and industrial policy at the University of Bologna. Flavia Franzoni, the wife of Romano Prodi, an adjunct professor of politics for social inclusion at the University of Bologna, and a member of the scientific board of Bologna, where she was president from 1988 to 1999. She's also a former adjunct professor of welfare and health politics at the University of Verona and the University of Bologna. The theme of this afternoon's discussion, a European perspective on healthcare and a comparison with U.S. reforms, is at the center of debate, of political debate in the U.S. today. And the manner in which we are looking at the issue this afternoon is critical to our internationalization efforts at Brown. Healthcare policy is complex and difficult for institutions at all levels and locations. The United States can learn much by examining healthcare systems like those found in Europe and elsewhere. As Brown students and faculty, we must help catalyze this learning process by engaging in ideas and norms, of countries around the world, and identifying context-specific changes that should be made in our institutions and policies in the United States. Relative to other wealthy countries, the United States lags well behind the leaders when it comes to measures like infant mortality and overall life expectancy. Like one comparison this afternoon's speakers know well, Italy's healthcare system ranks second out of 191 countries by the World Health Organization's listing of top countries for quality healthcare in 2000. In contrast, the United States was ranked 37th, the lowest of any industrialized nation. At the same time, and surprisingly to some, according to the WHO, the United States spent over 16% of its GDP, or just over $6,000 per person. This compares to an average of 8.6% in European countries. Contrary to stereotype, not every country in Europe employs government-run so-called socialized medicine. Unlike single-payer Britain or Sweden, other nations like France, Germany, Switzerland, and Belgium have developed hybrid models that feature shared responsibility between workers, employers, and the government, all contributing their fair share to guarantee universal coverage. The United States is the only industrialized nation that does not have universal healthcare system. As European scholars and policymakers alike, this afternoon's speakers bring valuable perspectives and experiences to an issue that the United States and this university would be wise to consider as it embarks on making changes that need to occur. Please join me in welcoming Romano Prodi and Flavia Franzoni, who will be speaking back and forth, I've been told, a little bit today, and then we'll follow up their talks with time for discussion and questions. So I think we're going to start with Prime Minister Romano Prodi. Welcome.
I will be very brief. To tell you why we propose it to our friends here in Brown to talk about that. Because not only because the health care debate is dominated in some United States, but because we have a very different perspective here of what is happening here. If you ask whoever is European, you say, well, why is it required universal health care as in the United States? The answer typically will be because the interest product of the pharmaceutical company is translated in some sort of let's say economic battle or simple internet battle. While when you go deep into the problem, you find that there are also ideological deep, let's say, reasons that they don't come only by materialism or by materialism, but also by a long-lasting different terms of sharing in terms of value, in terms of role of individuals. It's not. This problem goes really into the heart of the business, of the political system. This is the reason why we don't want to get into the technical aspect, but try to understand how it works. What is the position in here? What does it do? What speaking back when you take these things? In order to say, look, Iran has a system. Is it a communist system or not? Which are the degrees of freedom? Which are the dangers? Which are the results? And also, which are the costs? So we shall not analyze deeply the medical system because we are supposed to know it better than we do. Simply, I remember a few notes, but I'll remind what you told before. U.S. with Mexico and Turkey is the only country in the 36 or 37 OECD countries that we say the club of the wealthiest country in the world that has chosen, and I use the word chosen, has chosen not to have a general universal health system. And the health care in the U.S. is not considered a right. I insist on that because this is the basic problem. It is considered a right. When I was Prime Minister, to give you an example, and the hospital is the core of it, I tried to introduce some daily money for hospitalization. Let's say you are fit, if you are at home, you have to eat, you are in the hospital, let us say just a bit, it was like $17 per day, just for food. It was impossible. The political reaction against that, it was total, you can put some tickets for medicine or other, but the hospital is just something that in the deep mind of Italians and the European is absolutely free. And I have to withdraw the proposal. Absolutely, because otherwise it would be blocked by the parliament. This is an example that gives you the idea how deep is it, So I just sum up the characteristic of American system. As you know, is provided by private insurance companies with hundreds of different schemes, as it was in Europe in the old time, because we were both from the same group, as we said earlier. This health maintenance organizations are often considered good models in Europe because of their attention to prevention, lifestyle, early diagnosis, but with two problems that are perceived when you look at it. The excessive growth of healthcare costs, and here you have a very simple graphics. You compare average, and this is average, and then the name of the other country. You see the difference in percentage of GDP. That is, it might be the most meaningful, but you may have also this that is per capita expenditure. That is less meaningful, but even in this case you have a difference. Average, how much is average? Is around 3,000, and in US is 7,200. So it's, and what is important, you have even here a very substantial public, let's say, budget, public cost coming from the public budget, so it's not only private cost, but also provided by public budget. And the problem, I see, one is the cost. Second, the eternal problem of private insurers who use very often the clause of undeclared previous conditions. So even people insured are never sure 100% that they have right to that. And so over 40 million people in the US have no coverage for medical treatment, and so sometimes or many times a major disease is often a personal financial disaster. But and this goes to the roots of it. A big part of the 45 billion or 40 million, not insurers, almost 1.5, and this is the true price for European observers, choose not to have a medical insurance not because of poverty, but because they prefer different patterns of expenditure. When I read this, this is the reason why I tell you that there are really difference in perception. For me, is inconceivable to say that one of my sons choose not to be insured. For here is an American choice because this is a different value. I am not judging at this moment, simply trying to understand how deep and how important are this type of difference. So President Obama has made a strong case, as you know, after the failure of Clinton and Hillary Clinton and so on. And the idea were having health care coverage for all U.S. citizens, decrease health care cost or control health care cost, regulate the behavior of private insurance company, forbidding or limiting the use of pre-existing condition. This was the goal of the administration. And the initial proposal was, let us call it close to the European spirit, that say public option. This means simply the creation of a federal state agency in charge of providing health care to the have-not. So not a universal, but only to the have-not. So the private system would have remained the bulk of the organization, but the have-not are run by the state. This proposal still on the table in a Congress draft bill. I hope I'm not to be wrong, but I think is backed by Nancy Pelosi, I think, as major problem because of their position, not only of Republican, but also of some Democrats. Which are the reason? First of all, on the opposition of the American to anything managed by government public service, especially in health. The only exception that I see in the United States is the post office. And second, many objections to the existing public role in health. Let's say Medicare and Medicaid. So it's you have this double type of objection. I don't go into the details of this program. And third, the lobbyists that I say they are not the only factor as the European thing, but they are still important because, as in any field, there are vested interests that are legitimate vested interests. So Obama has made a lot of pressure to get approved his proposal.
he was making some sort of, let's say, campaign, traveling around the country, addressing a joint session of Congress and Senate, even appearing on 5 talk shows in one Sunday morning, so it was just a political battle. The new, this was done in order to get the 60 senators necessary for getting the results. The majority of American public is still, let us say, how I understand it, still suspicious. I use this prudent word, suspicious about change, and the president, of course, has modified, has abandoned the first idea of a state agency. In the new phase, he got the approval of the October 14, the approval of the Senate Finance Committee 14-9 with all the Democratic vote and one additional vote by Olympia Snow, Republican from Maine. So this is the first passage of the committee. Then you have to go to the floor, to the Senate and to the House of Representatives. Clearly, the chief architect of the bill, Max Baucus, is optimist, and he told it's clear that the bill will pass this year, and Obama is backing him. Clearly, we shall see in the next weeks, because there are still a few options open. The so-called trigger, the so-called Cadillac tax. Trigger is a provision to start the public option if, in a certain number of years, a growth in coverage from private insurers will not reach a threshold. Trigger, is a menace. The Cadillac tax is a tax to be imposed on the premium health care plans over $8,000 per year in favor of insurance for poor people. And third problem are tax benefits for employers offering contribution for health plan to their employees, and regulation of insurance company behavior. So let's say we had one step with an inclusive total reform, now a much more empirical adaptation and extension of the existing system, let us call it this way, with these 4 problems still open. So now let us try to see how a European system works, just not to say one is better than the other, but just to think about the problem, because I repeat that health is number 1 problem for everybody of us. As when we meet somebody in Italy, we say salute, means health.
I think that to understand better the European interest in this moment of the debate in the United States, it's important to know just a bit of history about the European welfare state model, because the health system is a part of welfare state system. The fathers of the welfare state European model are Chancellor Bismarck in Germany and Lord Beveridge in the United Kingdom. Indeed, today the two different models adopted in Europe are called the Bismarck model and the Beveridge model in the literature. Bismarck model, in 1983, with the Insurance Act, Bismarck decided to bring step by step social security to all German workers. It was a really compulsory innovative insurance paid by employers and employees. It was the beginning of the idea of welfare state, and definitely not originated by a socialist, because if you study the history, as a matter of fact, Bismarck was a very authoritarian and conservative leader. The decision was taken as a necessary remedy against the poverty and the insecurity connected to the first capitalistic development of modern German economy. This started a wave which became the flag of the most part of socialist movement in Europe in order to extend as possible the protection of workers. Lord Beveridge, close friend of Keynes, for the economist, a member of British Parliament during the Second War, was launched the motto, the program of protection of citizens from the cradle to the grave. That is the goal of a universal protection for citizens employed and unemployed. The Bismarck and Beveridge reforms were not limited to a health system, but even more the pension system and the social security system. Beveridge passed the health system reform at the end of the Second World War. I thought we must remember that the first model similar to that is in New Zealand in 1938. So today, in Europe there are two different models of healthcare system. Healthcare insurance system similar to the Bismarck one, a national health service similar to the Beveridge one. The national health service model, Beveridge model, is characterized by universal coverage, because health is a right, and is founded on general taxation and public ownership and or control of healthcare delivery. National health system obviously existed in United Kingdom, in Italy, in Spain, in Sweden, and it was the model preferred in the North Social Democratic countries. In contrast, the social insurance model, or Bismarck model, the universal coverage is, for this kind of model, the universal coverage is more difficult. Healthcare is financed by employers and employees through contribution, through non-profit insurance funds, and the provisions of health care are in public or private ownership. This kind of system exists, for example, in Germany, France, Netherlands. The Model 2 has introduced provision to reach universal coverage. Finally, there is another model, the model of United States, but my husband explained it. The two European models cover almost all the citizens because the state covers also the uninsured. For the student of sociology, of social science, to better understand the three healthcare system and the different health policy can be useful to remember the model of welfare state of Richard Titmuss, a very famous sociologist from the London School of Economics, who writes in essay of welfare state, but it's too long to enter in this scheme, and is a indication for a student of social science. But all countries have now moved away from the pure models that I described, and have many mixed systems. Let me now return to the two European models of health. The difference between the two models is not universalism, because they are correct. The assurance models are corrected. But the pendulum between equity and patent sovereignty. The health system can be classified on the basis of a dichotomy between patient sovereignty, patient choice are very important, and so there is the predominance of incentive to choices, and social equity. In this case, there is a predominance of control. There are policies in Europe oriented above all to sovereignty of the patient, and policy oriented to the equity. But in all the system there are similar problems, for instance the rising costs, inefficiency, and long waiting lines. We will compare. Now we describe just a bit the Italian health system because it's very interesting to compare with other European countries. In 1978, the Italian Parliament passed with a large majority the law which introduced the national healthcare system. Italy's healthcare system was based on many health insurance funds, in the past, casse mutue, serving different employment categories. For example, there was a public fund for private employees, one for public servants, along with private funds for artisans and business owners. Coverage of the population was high, but still incomplete. Entitlements or contribution level varied widely, and there was a north-south divide in level of provision. Expenditure had increased, in part due to the greatly increased coverage, but mainly because the absence of a division in responsibilities between finances scale, the funds, and spending decisions, in particular hospitals. The law, this law, was also the result of the important cultural debate about our social and economic model and about the rights of the citizen, which interested the country during the 70s. There is a debate with many important ideological positions. This was a season of reform. In the same period, passed the law which deinstitutionalized mental health care, to be an example. But it was not easy in Italy to abandon the Bismarck model and replace with the Beveridge National Health Service model. There was the opposition of a powerful bloc made by some doctors, insurance, fearing to lose from the harmonization of entitlements and contribution rates. The National Health Service involved a simultaneous change in all three components of health policy. Entitlements were made universal, benefits standardized, and the autonomous casse mutua replaced by local health authority, named Unità Sanitarie Locali in Italy, under municipal and regional authority. These local authorities managed the territorial service, primary medicine, service to disabled people, and so on, and the hospital. The Italian Constitution gave competence in health to regions. As a result of a 1978 reform, entitlement to comprehensive care became universal, benefits were standardized, and socioeconomic class differences in the use of care were significantly reduced. But there were many differences of quality between services in different parts of the country, and there was a big problem in management because top management was subsumed by the intrusiveness of the political parties in the administration of healthcare. And so the National Health Service was mainly reshaped during the 19 years. 3 reforms. The first one in 19, there are 2 laws, but it's too complicated to enter into this problem. What is the transformation? What are the transformations? The local unity were drastically reduced in number and transformed into public enterprise, local health agency called Azienda Sanitaria Locale. It's just a bit difficult. The region chooses the general manager who enjoys a large degree of autonomy. 200 big hospitals now are outside of this agency and became independent public hospital trust under a different manager. And then we introduced the DRG, diagnosis-related groups, tariffs to pay public and private services to eliminate reimbursement without limits. This kind of reform is a reform to efficiency e to overcome the political interference inside the health service. And then there is another reform in 1998. 2 important aspects of this reform. The reform introduced LEA, essential level of care, calls for greater uniformity among the regions in a country with many differences, for example, between the north and the south. This is very important because it's a problem of equity. And so the reform sometimes are reform to equity, sometimes are reform to efficiency of the system. And another important aspect of the 1998 reform is the reform tried also to impose control over the medical profession. There are many interesting things, but it's better to go away. To better understand the Italian system, I will now describe the journey of a citizen to the solution of his health problem. Because it's very interesting to compare this kind of system to other kinds of system. Every citizen chooses his familiar doctor from a list and can change him or her at all times. The choice is possible. The citizen goes to his familiar doctors. The family doctors orders drugs, sends the patient to hospital or to other ambulatory diagnostic and specialized center. The family doctors are independent and paid by the National Health Service on a pro capitian basis, independent, paid by the National Health Service based on the number of patients who chooses him. It's very interesting this one. Spiego un attimo, non alla visita, ma alla persona.
The doctor is not paid when he makes a visit or so. He's paid. He has maximum 1,500 patients. Now can be 1,900 patients, and each one he receives a number of euros, each one per year, independent from the number of visits he does. There is a competition because there are physicians who have more patients than others, but there is not a differentiation of pay under the number of visits. This was a very tough decision because it was aimed to avoid the multiplication of visits and the increase of cost with undue contacts between patient and physician. But it's also very delicate because employees. And so the compromise was some degree of freedom that outside this system the physician is free.
For example, in Spanish, the family doctor is a public employee.
No, not in Italy.
Not in Italy.
And he can do also some free work. Let us say, even in the hospital. In the hospital, the physicians are, of course, dependent from the hospital. But there is a compromise in which is called intramuros, with the Latin expression, that's inside the wall. They say there are places inside the hospital in which the specialists of the hospital, they can visit the private citizen for special care who want to have it. And the money is divided between the hospital, 50-50 to the hospital and 50 to the physician.
The regulation are in the reform tried also to impose control over the medical profession, which is a real problem in the
because why this compromise is interesting, because this gives additional income to the physician. The patients are quite happy, some of them to go directly, immediately to his own preferred physician. And because it's maybe inside the wall, it's impossible to have any fiscal evasion. It's clearly something. This is a typical compromise between private and public. Then the practitioners, they can do also free profession in some special, let's say, gymnasiums or special visits for young who make sport or let's say the license to get the car license, the medical visit. They have, just an adjustment of that.
Every independent family doctor can have 1,500 patients.
1,500 patients.
Can the doctor reject the patient?
No. Cannot reject the patient.
No.
Well, there were cases, but after
Exceptions.
specific.
No.
After
But there are the specific program, for example, for all people. And linked with this kind of problem, there are more
financial incentives. For example, if a physician has more share of all people higher than the average, each one is paid with the play, because you need, statistically, you need an additional attention.
But every 3 years there is a
every year there is
every 3 years.
Adjustment.
3 years. C'era un'altra domanda?
No, it was me. That was my question. If the patients are older, they get reimbursed. There's more money for older patients. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
The patient can go into a public hospital. The majority choose it, but also into a private hospital, profit or non-profit. In order to act as provider of the National Health Service, private hospitals have to obtain accreditation from the region and negotiate provisional agreements. The tariffs are the DRG. We explain what are DRG.
This is very interesting, because they are always begging for an appendicit or something, how much is paid, how much you stay in the hospital. It's a very
and the risk is that the hospital, private and public, prefer to make the surgery in which the DRG is more convenient.
This is one of the most delicate problems of the working on the system, relative to the tariff. Let's say there is a change in the surgery technology. So now you are much quicker to do, some treatment. The tariff remains with the old technology. So there is convenience to do that and not to do the other one, So, so you have always to adapt the system.
In hospital, the patient does not pay. He pays nothing, even in the case of a surgery. I pay nothing. When I had a terrible heart surgery, I changed the cardiac valve and a piece of aorta, and I pay nothing in my country.
Not because you were wives of the Prime Minister.
No.
You have to explain. There were 10 in the same room with the same treatment. I know that. We have to clarify.
And the patient can choose in what hospital and in what region to go to have the surgery and to have the other things. In Italy exists a health tourism. Many people who lived in the south of Italy prefer the hospital of the north, and the region of the south pays the cost of the region of the north. Hospital.
This is terribly sad. but so the freedom for the patients.
You cannot choose the.
We live in Bologna. There's a big medical center, and the number of patients coming in is enormous. There's a lot of problems for families who, let's say, take care of the children and so on. And it's painful, really. But it's a choice that is legitimate, It's, for every citizen to look for the hospital they think is better.
This is for the hospital. For drugs and diagnostic exams, the patient pays a co-payment. The poor are exempted. The co-payment policy has been erratic over the years in terms of level, scale, and exemption, because the co-payments sometimes used to scoraggiare.
To rationalize the menu. Otherwise, you make collection of medicine. So there is co-payment except for long-range illness and special medicine for serious illness in which there is no co-payment.
This is the health system, the national health system in Italy. Some words about Europe. All European systems originated in the first part of the last century have made many and continuous reforms and adjustments to adapt themselves to new situations like the enlargement of the coverage, above all of aging people, and the scientific progress in medicine with very sophisticated technology. It's difficult to compare them because the health system is connected and conditioned by the institutional context. For example, the federalism, the role of the region, and so on. The points of the reform are the same said in prima. During the 19th, the small or big reforms introduced above all some elements of competition. The goal was to control the cost and to eliminate lines. Cost and the lines are a big problem of the two systems. That is for the national health system and for the insurance system. I will only offer few examples. At the end of the 18th, in the UK, where there is a national system like in Italy, the government tried to introduce some elements of competition called quasi-markets, meaning a separation between demand and supply, responsibility of financing, and the responsibility of spending decision. It was established a budget for every family doctor. It is too long to explain the complex mechanism that considers the different kind of patients. The doctor, like a gatekeeper, decided to buy health service, medicine, and so on. on behalf of the patient in an effort to control expenditure. It is the problem of asymmetric information. The doctor could choose between different service options. The result was to have more competition among providers inside the public system. But the result was not so good. And because I suppose the big cost of transitions of this kind
to be
of
synthetic, the physician was supposed to be an economist, a financier, an accountant, or everything. You know, he was becoming mad because of his own budget with the whole. But it was simply to allocate his work in the more efficient way. You know, it was abstract. In theory, it was very, very, very intelligent. In real terms, it was difficult to manage.
I suppose it is more interesting here to talk about insurance system. Just a few words. For example, Germany, Netherlands, and France. Since the end of World War II, Germany has identified itself as a social market whose public philosophy favors a creative blend of government and market forces in organizing society and tackling its problems. We have already talked about how in the past in Germany had an insurance system based on insurance funds serving different employment categories. But today, this has changed, and every citizen can choose his insurance. The problem of choose is a central of choice. The insurance premium is standardized based on age and gender, and the benefits are the same. Each insurance can offer extra benefit at extra cost in order to compete with other providers, an element of competition inside this kind of model. Citizens with higher incomes can choose to go out from the insurance system to have a private insurance. The government and the insurance companies together created a fund to cover the insurance for the poor, the corrected of the system. In German hospital, you will not receive specialized care because this is only available outside through structure managed by a very strong association of doctors. The problem of the power of the doctor, but it's too complicated to enter this problem. In the Netherlands, the privatization has gone even further. Hospitals are for profit and insurance are all private. Also, the state intervenes to guarantee coverage for all. Then, in Germany, for example, the last reform is very interesting because, I don't wrote it, he speaks about health responsibility of the patient and introduce correlation between co-payment and cooperation with check-up programs and lower insurance contribution for healthy behavior. Many ways to affrontare i problemi. In France, insurance reimburses after the medical visit. In case of a very expensive service, the cost is paid in advance by a financial intermediary. European health systems are completely different from one to the other. I have offered you these few examples to show how the European health systems are in continuous evolution. In some countries, proposals have been made that jeopardize equality. Nevertheless, I think that they have introduced these elements of privatization and competition not to revoke the universal right to health care, but in an effort to control cost, in other words, as an instrument of governance. Because the health care is for European people a universal right. Sorry for my English.
No. Yeah.